If you've been following AI applied for a long time, you know Jaden's obsession with video generating tools, right? I sort of like he's my go-to guy for keeping up with all this stuff. And there's some news coming out of the video generation world, which Jaden was just telling me about offline, which I wanted to get to here. So first of all, VO3 is, it's created like, people have created like millions of these things, and it's just sort of alarming how good it is. It sounds like there's some changes with Sora, which actually sound really exciting. But the one that Jaden mentioned, which got me really thinking, was character AI. I've been thinking about character AI a lot. If you guys think character AI is just like some weird, AI girlfriend, it's for like the weirdos out there. Guys, character AI gets something like 200 million visits a month. Character AI is huge. It's changing the way that people do this. So the fact that they are either thinking about or starting or something like that, Jaden, you tell me, something in the video generation thing, like, whoa, that is going to be utterly, utterly disruptive and starts to get into the future of what AI companionship. I don't mean that in a weird way, but also means a lot of different things. I mean, companionship can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and video, holy cow. So Jaden, talk to me. What were you saying in this?
Yeah, I think the character AI is pretty crazy. And I think it's also important to know that character AI like sort of got acquired by Google. Again, it's like
Yeah,
these
like
weird
ballpark.
acquisitions that don't really
Yeah.
happen. It's just started essentially as like a chatting platform where it was like talk to Albert Einstein or Leonardo da Vinci, and people would make like these little like characters that you could talk to of people. What I thought was crazy, Connor, tell us a little bit about you just made a post yesterday about I was looking at it on LinkedIn, which if you guys don't follow Connor on LinkedIn, I don't know what you're doing. The man's a machine over there with posting so much. But the number one use case for AI just changed. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that was pretty wild, actually. And this came out at Harvard Business Review. Kind of 2024 was all about, brainstorming and all that kind of stuff. But really, the big movement on AI and the number, like, it's actually like, I think like the top three or something like that now, Jade. The top three things are now essentially all very personal, sort of like talking to ChatGPT or whatever large language model you sort of like want to talk to. First of all, the number one use case is as a therapy or companion. The second one is organizing my life. The third one is finding purpose. Jaden, how crazy is this, right? But it really goes to how these things are developing. And Jaden and I had this phenomenal conversation. If you haven't found it, you can find it on YouTube, of getting to talk to Mustafa Suleiman, who's a CEO of Microsoft AI. And his big vision when he started Google DeepMind and when he started Inflection was, this thing is a companion. This is not a tool that you use at work. This is really a companion. And so that is just following a trend. First of all, people are driving that trend. But second of all, Microsoft Copilot, everything else, they are also driving this trend. Talk to this like a companion. And as we know, and Jaden, that sort of like I work with organizations all the time on this, the best thing you can do with a large language model is talk to it like a human. And people are obviously taking that seriously, but it's also really filling a sociological need, right? And so when I saw this out of character AI, I'm like, holy cow, because if it goes from just like sort of like chatting to actually being able to visualize something, I think that this is actually going to affect. I don't like to talk in like good and bad, because these things can be everything at the same time. We just want to sort of like talk about what's going on. But that's interesting. When I see what character AI is doing, it trends along with what the new use cases of generative AI are.
100%. Okay, I'm gonna paint a very strange business use case that everyone listening
Like for
like
this.
probably could benefit from. So and I want to first explain a little bit of what character AI is doing, and then how I see this could actually be really interesting. Whether you would do this or not, this will be done. So first of all, how it works essentially with their new video thing is you can actually upload like pictures. So you could go to something like ChatGPT or Grok and generate a bunch of images of, let's say, like a character or a person you want to talk to. You upload them over to Character AI. You can even upload like an audio clip. So if you want it to have your voice or the voice of your friend or something, I don't know, whatever, you can upload it and it can talk like that person. And it'll essentially turn those images that you upload into videos, turn it into like an avatar. It's called Avatar FX. So upload a photo, and then it essentially, that photo now is like a video, a talking person. So, these like, character AI became quite popular, I think, in the early days, and a lot of people wrote it off as like, oh, it's just a bunch of kids that are like chatting with, I don't know, chatbots for fun and wasting time. There's something that I think is like interesting from a business perspective. And like, you also have to think that Google recently kind of acquired whatever, the character AI team and the players. And you got to ask yourself, like, why would they do that if this is just like an app for a bunch of teenagers? Like, is this really that useful? So if you've ever read the book, okay, so here's my pitch here's the business angle on it. If you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, have you read that?
Oh yeah, I know that book. Yeah,
Napoleon Hill.
yeah, yeah.
So famous book, one of the, if you're into business books, one of the top business books. And there's a really funny thing that I remember when I read this. I think I listened to an audiobook when I was in college of this book, and there's a really funny concept in there that I think either Napoleon Hill said he did this or Dale Carnegie did this himself. I think he was writing about Dale Carnegie. Essentially, he would sit down, and it was like all about visualization and imagining things. And he would imagine that he was in a room, like around a table with all of the biggest business titans in the world. And so while Dale Carnegie is sitting there trying to figure out how to build his empire, he's imagining that Albert Einstein's at the table. He would imagine that like Alexander the Great was at the table, that
Awesome.
Julius Caesar, that like, Henry Ford, like all of these, I don't know, whoever he thought was important. And there is a board meeting, and he would visualize himself asking like his problems and pitching them to the room. Okay, this is what I'm trying to solve right now. Like, how would you guys solve it? And obviously, he's very, very good creative imagination,
Yes.
whatever, probably a crazy IQ or something. But like, he would imagine what their responses would be. This is a very good thought experiment, I think, for anything. If you mentors in business are super valuable, but if you don't have the greatest mentor in the world, sometimes you could kind of imagine or try to visualize what one of these great people would respond, what Steve Jobs might say to you about a rollout of a certain product, and kind of what your response would be. So anyways, this is what he would do, and he said that this helped him enormously in business, make all sorts of good decisions and come up with good concepts that he hadn't thought of before. So this, I believe, is kind of the modern day. If you are working in any sort of job function, you inevitably follow influencers in your job field that talk about certain things. Connor, for example, on LinkedIn. Imagine now, whoever these influencers are, or whoever these business titans are, or whoever these people that you look up to that you think could help you in this area, imagine building a character AI for them, where it actually is trained off of data that probably pulls from their original source of the writings of Albert Einstein, etc. And now you're asking it questions, and it's actually responding, and you can make it very realistic with kind of these like talking heads that are like video now. I just think this actually could be quite useful for business advice and making it really realistic. So, anyways, that is
No,
my
I
business
agree.
take
And
on it.
no, and the thing is, because you can do this text based right now, but it's very different that versus sort of seeing somebody, right? So like, so I talk about this stuff a lot when I'm doing this with companies and things like that. But like, our brain has a hard time looking at this what essentially is a chatbot and considering it a human, right? That's not how your brain works. It's one of the things that really gets in the way. It's sort of like one of these behavioral changes that we try to drive. But if you actually could see this and not just a photo, but like, Jeff Bezos sort of like sitting at the table and kind of like thinking about this and then sounding like Jeff Bezos, it's unbelievably powerful. And then the other part of this, as I remember, our buddy Logan Kilpatrick, who is over at DeepMind, was writing on X the other day, or maybe a couple weeks ago, but he's like, remember, all these tools are using Gemini, 2.0 or whatever in the background. And so one of these things that kind of goes a little bit unnoticed is that all like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, they're using their most powerful models to generate these things. So this isn't just like, oh, that's a pretty good, VO video or whatever. Like, no, it's also being powered by the most powerful large language model, which means that what it's going to say and what it's going to do and all that kind of stuff is going to be tremendous. In fact, I think it was like with OpenAI where it was saying, was it Operator now, Jaeden, that's now being powered by their O3 reasoning model, which is way more powerful. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. So remember that sort of like when we think about these things and when you guys think about these things, it's not like video exists over here and voice exists over here and the image generator exists over here. The power of this is the large language model underneath all this, like really understanding context and physics and everything else. That's the most amazing thing. So when we talk about character AI, using these tools and things like that, I don't know what character, I guess if Google sort of owns character AI, I know it doesn't exactly, but it's sort of like acqui-hired all the people from character AI. But if you're talking about, a language model like Gemini, which is arguably just in raw power, the best one out there, you could argue, right? And putting that into personal interactions and things like that, that's where that gets really interesting, for better or for worse, right? But certainly when you're talking about integrating that into a video model and into sort of something that you're going to have a conversation with, that's the power of sort of like combining Gemini and character AI. And that's going to, I think, have huge ramifications for how we interact with things as humans, right? I mean, this is a societal question I think we have going here.
Yeah, 100%. So I think this is absolutely fascinating. The one thing I wanted to say is a lot of people up until this point, myself included, were like, look, like these things are cool. If I want to try Google VO, for example, you got to get on their like $200 tier. So a lot of people are kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
holding back on that and not wanting to pay $200 a month unless it's part of like your job function. One thing I will mention is OpenAI's Sora model has now opened up to anyone on their $20 a
It's
month
amazing.
plan. So you got to, they just added it to the sidebar of ChatGPT. You'll notice there's a Sora model. You click on that and then you click on the video section. And I've just recently using this. I was blown away. I didn't realize I could use this because I've previously paid for ChatGPT's $200 model to use Operator and stuff, and that let me use Sora. But yeah, now it is. Now it's built right into ChatGPT. You can go use Sora, check out the video models for only $20 a month. You'll be super, super impressed. And yeah, if you find any cool use cases, let us
I
know.
think it's so awesome, and just to sort of like wrap up, because I was just on a podcast before this, kind of talking about this exact same thing when people were asking, "How do you keep up with everything?" So if you want to keep up, I mean, again, you can listen to sort of like us, you can sort of like follow other newsletters, things like that, but also don't feel like you have to keep up with all this. If you don't care about video, don't feel like you have to keep up with it. Like just apply this to your life, apply large language models to your life, to your work. Don't start with what AI can do, just start with what you can do, and start sort of saying like, hey, can this help me with this? Can this help me with this? But if you want to play around with this, I love this advice. Go onto Sora, just like see what it can do. But again, don't feel like you have to be using it every day or anything like that. And if you want to compare, by the way, a lot of models, Jaeden's AI box is $20 a month. It blew up. He was telling me off. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this now or not, but like Jaeden was telling me this, like it like really blew up in a really cool way. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it either. Get in there, try it out. It's really, really cool. It allows you to compare other models right next to each other. So AIbox.ai. But this is the thing, guys. Don't feel like you have to keep up with something. Just find the use cases for you. Find the models that work for you. It's really fun. And it's not just about work. It's how you're going to live your life and sort of like live your best life at home too. Guys, thank you for tuning in. As always, we are getting into the summer, into the warmer weather. This is like the podcast you want to be listening to as you're strolling on those beautiful walks and going those long drives and everything like that. So thank you for tuning in. We love doing this with you all, and have an amazing rest of your day.